Here we go. This is Kinesiology 223, and we are talking about psychological skills training in chapter 12. This will be the first presentation out of, I believe, 9. Talk a little bit about chapter outcomes, psychological skill training is kind of a brief overview, and then also mental toughness. The book has kind of transitioned from talking and writing about athletics to more working in a fitness environment. I might interchangeably use athlete and participant here in these presentations. Sorry to confuse, but they're both very interchangeable with some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump into this. When you look at some of the outcomes here, we're talking about it's an awareness of psychological skills, right? And an awareness of a process and then implementing a process once you've created that process. If I can say process one more time, that'd be great. Because for many of the people that you work with, they just might not have an understanding of what it takes to make physiological change. And it's change after all. So it's going to be new and it's going to be uncomfortable to these people. And part of that discomfort is part of the process. And as a result, you may have to guide your people to understand that, yes, that burning sensation is actually part of the process of you doing work. Yes, that delayed onset muscle soreness the next day is actually part of the process. Don't run away from that because that's just part of the process for a much bigger picture goal. So, you look at this in terms of like mental toughness and being able to come up with a psychological intervention for your people. It is as much informing them on the front end as what to expect as it is guiding them through the process while they're in it. All right, so let me get me out of the way here. With psychological skills training, it's the practice of mental or psychological skills to enhance performance and increase enjoyment or achieve greater satisfaction. And I agree with this. In some regards, it's like a matter of people will go into a gym to work out and they don't really have an understanding of what they're doing or how they're doing it. And so they can't fully embrace the process. And it's part of what we do as practitioners is give people the opportunity to make change. But also you have to explain to them that the process of change is just that. It's a process and you're going to have different things that happen along that way. And that's part of being a professional in this industry. Now, there are many different areas within behavior modification to draw from, and there's a number of different disciplines that the book will outline. But the one they point out is, you have behavior modification, cognitive theory, and just straight out therapy, rational emotional therapy or motive therapy, goal setting, attentional control, progressive muscle relaxation, and systematic desensitization. They note that goal setting is probably the most predominant out of all those. And I would agree with that because when you sit and talk with somebody at the table regarding whether it's an athlete and what they want to accomplish next year, or it's perhaps a client who's coming in and they say, I just want to be fit, you're trying to help them take a very nebulous idea that they really don't have an idea of what even that looks like or what that even looks like and be able to make it more concrete, and therefore it becomes a more realistic, firm goal for them to shoot for. Otherwise, it's just a broad-based nebulous idea of what is being fit or in shape, and they'll never get there. So you have to be able to kind of guide them on that path. But that guidance starts earlier on when you help them formulate what it actually looks like that they're trying to achieve. We'll talk more. So they go into a couple different examples here where like early models in the field talked about or included self-regulation of arousal, confidence, attentional focusing, distraction control, and goal setting. So the goal setting is something you'll hear throughout the remainder of this chapter. But some of these you can kind of do the math of them and go, okay, regulation of arousal. We talked about that before in another chapter in terms about being overly anxious or overly aroused. And you'll have athletes that'll be overly aroused or under aroused, and they're not operating at an optimal level. A person's confidence, and that can be because of their current state. It could be because of the environment they're in. It could be the difference between the current state that they're in, if I can use the hands right, and the environment that they're in, and they just chose the wrong gym. Right, that can be part of it. And then distractions in the gym, distractions outside of the gym, etc., and goal setting. So they really are trying to get to this in terms of how you can use psychological skills training as a way to help your athletes, but also help your people. And I like this in the book. They actually later on, we're not talking about here, but they get into coaching as well and psychological skills training for the coaches. So, athletes have a ton of different things that they have to overcome. And if you're talking about like the Olympics, it's a quadrennial programming methodology where it's over 4 years. If you're in a college environment or perhaps a professional environment, you might be running different meets in different countries, or if you're in a college environment, it's different states while you're still trying to balance the rigors of your academic side of life. So the 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 concept becomes kind of like internal versus external. And one of the challenges is really specific to the person and that person's ability to manage their own schedule, their own life, but also manage themselves and be able to have a management of their own self-talk. There's a difference between like, why the hell can't you do this? Why aren't you getting this done? Saying, all right, buddy, here's how we're going to do this. All right, buddy, here's how we're going to move forward. And you have that different voice in your head. It's still the same general idea that you're talking about a particular topic of where you are in a current place and time. But one is saying, how the heck did you get to this position? The other one is saying, how the heck are you going to get out of this position? One is backwards looking, one is forward looking. So, you have to work with your athletes and even with your people in the fitness realm to not look at the fact they haven't worked out for 20 years, but now they've worked out for 2 days, now 2 weeks, now 2 months. So you have to kind of reframe it and make it a more positive slope or forward looking than backward looking. So they provide a couple different examples of this self-talk and in terms of like negative self-talk. And they provide these, and I think they have a place because I think we've all experienced them at some point, whether it's you're frustrated after losing a game, you yourself choked at maybe a critical point, you're injured and you've kind of lost your athletic identity and you're not able to bounce back quick enough. So you can kind of go through this list here and you get to the bottom where it's like you lack the desire or motivation to exercise. Sometimes that's just an overtraining state, right? And you need to actually curtail your programming a little bit for your athletes to be able to have them not go into an overtrained state. But you get the idea. You look at like this list here, and I think we've all fell victim to one of these at some point in our athletic careers. And even within the workout realm, you've been working out for several months after the first of the year, and all of a sudden you start to hit that wall and you get a little bit burnt out. Perhaps your lack of desire to work out and your lack of motivation is just simply because you need to change your workout. Our bodies are really good at adapting to a stressor. You got to change the stressor, otherwise your body's going to get bored. It's like eating oatmeal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. With mental toughness, it absolutely has its place in sport and the workplace. There's times where, quite frankly, you work a job and there's things you have to just gut it out and work through. You don't want to, but it's part of the job, right? That's just how it is in life. And some people have different degrees or tolerance for that background noise in their lives and have better ability to manage those things. And to that end, that can be inferred as mental toughness and mental resilience, but I would also say it's kind of the ability to understand the lay of the land and know that this is just part of the process. I know that this is going to happen at work. I know when we go into end of quarter, we have to crunch a bunch of numbers. I know when we get closer to spring break as a coach that my athletes are going to test out the week before spring break and that's going to be a busy time. You just know the ebb and flow and it becomes a better informed process for the person, and that allies or brings down some of the stressors that you have involved. And as a result of that, you end up having a lower stress environment. And really what it comes down to is just being more in control of the environment, or more accurately, more in control of the process. Now, you fall over, you got to get up. You fall down 4 times, you got to get up 5 times. That's being resilient, and that is just whether it's physical or mental. And you have to look at this and go, all right, whether it's 50% or it's higher or lower will depend upon if it's an open sport or a closed sport, or if it's a practice environment, or if it's a game environment. But the point I'd like to make here is you kind of have to wrap yourself around it. And I've said it a couple times. The population that's in front of you will be different than the population that's in front of you next year or next year or next year, depending if you coach in different areas. And if you're working with different clients will have different starting off points that you'll have to work with. So it could be 50% mental, it could be 80% mental, could be 20% mental. Some people are just wired to come in like a machine and get their workouts done, and you're just facilitating. For some of your athletes, it's the same. So, you have to kind of take it as it comes and have an understanding of the person in front of you to be really effective. I like this breakout box. I like this a lot. This is on page 275. It gives you these 4 critical constructs where there's control, commitment, challenge, and confidence. I urge you to read through some of these gray boxes that you have in the book for this chapter as well as the next one, because they're both quite good. And I'm almost certain there's some information in there that you'll find later on the test. So I'm going to break out from this and go into the next presentation. You guys have a good one.